Uh, Saudi-Iran rapprochement in the Middle East region is one of the most significant development of the current era, particularly in 2023 when the world media witnessed these unusual pictures on the global screens, where Saudi Arabia and Iran signed MOUs on 10th of March 2023 with the mediation of the Chinese. Uh, if you talk about the introduction, the only constant in international politics is considered to be the change. Same as the case of the rise and fall of great powers, which is key to global system. And transition in the world order certainly have implications for regional power dynamics. And in the post-unipolar world, China has been rapidly stretching its muscles, and hence it's capable of challenging the American interest world over. In the recent past, the growing Chinese economic, political, and strategic interest are transforming the overall dynamics of the world politics and particularly that of the Middle East. The Middle East is a highly significant region in world politics. Its geostrategic location is very, very significant because the major oil resources, around 60% of the global oil resources, are coming from this region. I'm sorry. It has always had attraction for the world powers. The US also had very, very I must say, deeper interest in the politics of the Middle East because of its energy requirement and the global dominance that the United States wanted to maintain during the unipolar world order. Next is China, and China's influence in the region is also increasing very rapidly because the Chinese have the intentions to invest in the region heavily. Therefore, one can say that Beijing is one of the largest trading partner of several Middle East states. Particularly if we talk about KSA and Iran, who have been the ideological rivals and ambitious hegemon in the region, but with the mediation of China, these states are coming closer to each other. Now, if we have a glance at the dynamics of the politics in the region, uh, the 1979 Iranian Revolution started to trigger very strained relations amid Saudi Arabia, US, and Iran. But the Chinese increasing interest, as well as the Chinese ties with Saudi Arabia and Iran, have shifted, or I must say, are shifting the dynamics of the regional politics from rivalry to rapprochement. So, on the one hand, there was a you can say intense rivalry, and now there are some glimpses of uh, this rapprochement. So, here are some, you can say, like other pictures. China and Iran, if we take a look of the relationship of the Chinese and Iran, China and Iran have 50 years of diplomatic ties. The two players have shared interest, particularly in opposing the American hegemony world over and especially in the Middle East region. China is the largest trading partner of Iran, and they have approximately 16 billion US dollar trade in 2022. Iran oil export is 87% to China. In 2021, Iran and China signed a 25-year cooperation agreement, and the MOU signed around $400 billion of worth. So, Saudi Arabia and China, if we look at the relationship of these two very significant international players, they are very strong partners in trade, investment, and particularly in energy sector. So their trade is around $35 billion, where Saudi Arabia exports crude oil to the Chinese, and on the other hand, Saudi Arabia imports a number of industrial goods from China. So Iran and Saudi rapprochement is basically related to the Chinese very far-reaching interests and global objective in the region. Most powerful states in the Middle East are certainly Iran and Saudi Arabia. They are having a long history of conflictual ties from centuries back. Yet there have been some periods or some eras of cooperation, particularly during the Shah of Iran and the Shah Faisal era. But the current ties between KSA and Iran are highly complex, but at the same time seems to be progressive. KSA-Iran rapprochement can benefit other states in the region as well, apart from China. So now let's have a look at the impacts on the sustainable growth of the Islamic countries in the region as a result of this. There are huge opportunities of economic development, political stability, and there are certain cases that we regional security and environment in the Middle East that can improve with the rapprochement. Terrorism and extremism is a common challenge for the entire region because a number of non-state actors like IS, Boko Haram, and others have been emerging from this region. Uh, then the defense spending of these Middle East states is too high. Saudi Arabia is one of the largest importer of the American military industrial complex. Regional job market will flourish. Regional trade and investment will increase. Regional political conflicts shall resolve, and great powers rivalry shall reduce if the two ideological states, I mean Iran and Saudi Arabia, comes closer to each other. The regional security environment, as far as is concerned in the Middle East, the Syrian civil war. I will not go into too much detail because of the limitation of time. The Yemeni civil crisis, the nuclear deal with Iran, the rivalry for regional dominance, the threat of terrorism. These are security challenges that are going to that are challenging the entire security dynamics of the Middle East. Next is regional trade and investment, and as well as the job market. The Persian Gulf region has the largest collective oil reserves in the world, as I have mentioned earlier, that it provides around 60% of the crude oil to the global total. Saudi Arabia is is extracting around 292 billion dollar a year, 292 billion barrel a year. Then the Iranian more than 150, Iraq around 150, Kuwait more than 100, and the other countries. So as a whole, these six countries account for overall 80% of the oil reserves from the Persian Gulf. Then regional job market can also flourish. The World Bank says that unemployment rate in the MENA region, I mean the Middle East and North Africa region, is around 8.4%, which is much higher than the global average, which is around 5.8%. The youth unemployment rate in the Middle East is around 26%, and the main sectors of employment in the Middle East are services sector that provides around 53% of the job. Agriculture sector, that is 17%. On the one hand, there is Iran and other Middle East countries who like Lebanon, who are very strong in the agriculture sector, but this Sahara countries, the Arab Sahara countries, the Arabian Peninsula countries like Saudi Arabia and others, they are in shortage of the agriculture products. So therefore, the bilateral trade can increase. Industrial sector is providing around 29% of the global of the regional job market. Next is the regional trade and investment. This region uh, has the capacity of around $1.5 trillion. It's a huge amount, with the export of around $725 billion and imports of $675 billion. The top three trading partners of Middle East are China, US, and EU. On the other hand, the foreign direct investment with inflows of US dollar around $85 billion. So this is the capacity of trade and investment in the region, and with the rapprochement, certainly these areas will flourish. Next is the regional security environment in Middle East. So as I have mentioned earlier that these two ideological states, I mean Iran and Saudi Arabia, they have the history of uh, this proxy wars in the recent decades, like in Iraq, in Yemen, in Syria. I'm not going into too much detail because I have been allowed only 5 to 6 minutes. So therefore, I will cut down all these things. Otherwise, these are the issues that can be talked about in hours. Next is the defense spending of the actors. Dear audience, the Middle East region accounts for 240 billion US dollar defense spending. Top of the list is certainly the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Then it is with around 87 plus billion dollar. Then Iran, $25 billion. Iraq, 29. Then Israel and other countries. So as a whole, there is a huge amount of defense spending in this region. And if there is rapprochement between these two countries, certainly all these states, except one which is mentioned in the list, I don't want to repeat his name again and again, all of them can certainly cut down their defense spending, and that money can be used for the overall, you can say, like progress and growth of the nations and the population. Great powers always had a deep interest in the Middle East region, and great powers, if these two states, I mean Iran and Saudi Arabia, comes closer to each other, so certainly the great powers rivalry will be withered. It will be narrowed down, like we can say in the Cold War. So this Soviet Union and United States have been uh, stretching the muscles of each other, or they have been confronting each other. Now, China has also become as an active player in the region, and certainly these pictures are reflecting the overall political environment of the region. At the end of my presentation, I will certainly say that the rapprochement in the Middle East is extremely positive development for the regional politics as well as the overall international political environment. On the 10th of March, there an MOU signed, and here in the next picture we see that Mohammed bin Salman is meeting with the Iranian foreign minister. Uh, Dear audience, I'm really sorry for your inconvenience if something has been left out with not too much details. So I'm sorry for that. I'm extremely thankful to you. Assalamu alaikum.